For our Angry Birds app, we'll start by adjusting the SpriteKit template so that we have an empty project that we can then start with. If you want to skip the setup part, you can also just download the starter project from the downloads of this lecture and can then continue with the next video, where we will start building our actual game. For those interested, I will now show you the exact steps necessary for us to take to create the template for the Angry Birds app. Obviously, we will begin by creating a new Xcode project. I will then select Game as the template for my project. The next step is naming our app, which I'm just going to call Birds. The language should be Swift, and the game technology selected is going to be SpriteKit. We can then select a place to save our project and just create it, as always. Since for this Angry Birds clone, our app should obviously run in landscape mode. So I'll begin by unchecking portrait from the device orientation in my settings, so that we are only left with landscape left and right. I will also make sure hide status bar is checked and also check requires full screen. We will then go into our info.plist file and add the entry viewController based status bar appearance and set this boolean value to no. In this app, we're actually going to use the gamescene.sks file to build our levels using our visual editor. We can still delete the actions.sks file since we won't need it. If I now open the gamescene.sks file, which we are going to use, I want to delete this hello world label to start off with an empty scene file, where we can add all of our custom elements to later. If I take a look at my game view controller, I don't have to change anything here in my viewDidLoad method, because it just loads our game scene from the SKS file and then presents it in our view. The other 4 methods can be deleted since we won't need any of them, since we set orientation and status bar preferences in our project settings and the plist file. So all we should be left with is the viewDidLoad method, which initializes our scene from the SKS file. Finally, we'll edit our game scene file, where I can pretty much delete everything, starting with the 2 properties at the top. The complete contents of our didMoveToView method and all other methods completely. So all we want to have is an empty game scene file containing only the didMoveToView method. Our game scene is initialized with the SKS file, which we have here. And if I take a look in the identity inspector of the SKS file, I can see that its custom class is set to GameScene. So even though the scene is initialized with this file, we can still use our GameScene class to provide functionality for our scene. Let's run this once to see if everything works and we don't get any errors or warnings. Should that be the case, we should only see an empty scene without any content. Like I said, you can download this starter project here if you didn't want to do all these steps on your own. Our app compiles without errors, and as soon as it starts, we can see an empty scene in landscape orientation. In the debug info, I can see that there is one node, which is our scene itself, so that's fine. And we've successfully created our template and are now able to begin working on our game.